Hello, bruv. We're back with the Devil's Picture books. Picture book? Picture books. The Devil's Picture books. And we're at the chapter engravings. Engraving. Let's get that debris out of the way. Engraving. And there's no weight that's going to hold this down. The order obtained in 1441 by the master card makers of Venice from their Senate, which prohibited the introduction into that city of large quantities of cards printed and painted outside of Venice, should be particularly noticed, as printed cards are especially mentioned as well as painted ones. And this points to the fact that there was in use some process besides the original one of painting or stenciling when the cards of that period were being manufactured. The fragments of the French packs, which show many marks, but particularly by their costumes that they were executed about the time of Charles VII, were possibly some of the first efforts of the wood engraver. They were probably produced between the years 1420 and 1440, that is, before the greater part of the xylographies now known. The first pictures produced by printing with blocks of wood were probably used as playing cards, and this is an invention which is very much older than that of printing with movable types. By the middle of the 15th century, cards had spread all over Europe, and necessity called for an economical process by which they might be rapidly as well as cheaply produced. In 1392, 3 packs of tarots were painted for the King of France by Joachim Gringenmuir, for which he received 56 sols parisis, that is to say about 170 francs, or $34. A single pack of tarots, which were charmingly painted about 1415 by Marziano, secretary to the Duke de Milan, cost 15,000 écus d'ors, about $500. And in 1454, a pack of cards intended for a dauphin of France cost only 14 or 15 francs, or $3. In the 30 years which had elapsed, it is evident that a cheap process of manufacturing cards had been discovered. Cards had also become merchandise and were sold at the same time as counters, or epingles, and from the latter is derived the French expression tirer son épingle de jeu. Butchering that, but you get the point. It has generally been conceded that the Chinese understood the art of wood engraving long before it was practiced in Europe. Marco Polo, who visited China about the middle of the 13th century, describes in his interesting book of travels a mode of printing or stamping with colored ink, and it is probable that printing from a block was also known to the Chinese at that time. Authorities do not agree about which are the first specimens of wood engraving, but it is more than probable that a rude picture of St. Christopher carrying the infant Jesus, which is dated 1425, is one of the earliest specimens of the art. This curious and interesting print was discovered pasted in the cover of a manuscript in the library of the Chartreuse at Buxheim in Suabia. Mr. Singer gives a description of the infancy of the xylographic art and says that the demand for playing cards increased so rapidly after their introduction into the European countries that it became imperative to manufacture them at a moderate price. And thus wood engraving became of consequence, and its production soon became a most important article of commerce. It is probable that at first the wood engravers produced only small pictures of saints, influenced no doubt by their priestly surroundings, as nearly all of early woodcuts which have been found are of pious subjects. And they were probably executed by the inhabitants of the religious houses, who were at the time the educated men of the day. These early engravings are printed on paper of the shape, size, and style of the earliest known playing cards. The saints' pictures always bore a small streamer or ribbon, on which the name of the holy person represented was written. On the early specimens of playing cards, names are always placed beside the heads of the court cards, and this may have been necessary in order to distinguish the saint from the king, as it is possible that the engraver may have used the same figures to represent not only the holy personages, but also the members of the royal card family, and they could be distinguished only by the names written beside them. An old chronicler of the city of Ulm of about the year 1397 states that playing cards had been sent in bundles to Italy, Sicily, and other southern countries in exchange for groceries and other merchandise, and it may have been this exportation of cards from Germany, which probably increased most rapidly, that called for the edict forbidding the importation of cards into Venice in 1441. It also points to their having been manufactured in quantities even before 1423, the date of the earliest known woodcut. Cards were not only produced by hand painting, stenciling, or wood engraving, but really artistic and beautifully executed cards were engraved on copper in 1466 by an artist known as Lemaitre, the master, but by no other name. Only a few specimens of those unique cards are now to be found in some museums, and the series is not complete. According to circulation, they should consist of 70 cards containing 5 suits instead of 4, with 14 cards in each suit and 4 fingers or court cards to each one. The face cards are the king, queen, knight, and knave, and the marks show a bizarre collection of savages, wild beasts, birds of prey, and flowers. They are grouped and numbered and arranged in such a way as to be easily distinguished and sorted into the correct suits. In 1463, the card makers of England endeavored to protect themselves from the foreign importation of cards, and they must have been a somewhat influential guild even at that early date, to require and receive the protection from the government. But no cards have been discovered that were undoubtedly of English manufacture of that period. That's all for today, bruv. We'll be back with materials at another junk shop. Goodbye.